everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name's David Edgar. I'm your host as always, and I'm joined this week by the one-man Ayrshire wrecking crew that is Andy McGowan. Good afternoon, Andy. How are you?
Great, David. Things are only getting better.
Yeah. Almost to the point where I know I'm not alone in this, because I've spoken to other Bears about it, where you keep thinking, right, okay, it's going to go back to normality soon, and it doesn't. Rangers are getting better and better and better, and just breezing through games at the moment. And our opponents are crumbling like a rich tea biscuit that's been overly dunked in a cup of tea. It's been tremendous fun to watch. We will, of course, get into the scenes from Sharkhead later, but let's kick off before we get into that with another fine Rangers performance off to Ross County at the weekend, Andy. And according to Jurgen Klopp and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, playing at 12 o'clock on a Sunday or the next available day after a European match is very difficult. Rangers didn't really look as though that they were in the mood for that to apply to us. Another straightforward performance, never really in any serious doubt. And again, and this might sound like a mild criticism, and it really, really isn't. Again, I felt Rangers scooshed a 4-0 victory and had gears where they needed to go up.
Yep, and I don't think we should be taking it for granted, because if we looked at our season ahead, I think I wouldn't have been alone in saying that a lot of it would be, success and failures would be defined by how we handled the weekend after a particularly hard Thursday European game. And touch wood, to date, we've been extremely adept at doing that, to the point where you would have been forgiven for forgetting that we had an extremely taxing and challenging game on Thursday night against a Liège team that was flat out for a victory. So these are things that I'm not taking for granted, and I think that we just at the same time have to take or give enormous credit to the team in the back room as well, because these are ties that can sometimes cause problems. It was a soft pitch, low sunlight, strange atmosphere, a physical team. So these are all things that can sometimes just puncture the bandwagon a wee bit, and we negotiated it absolutely fantastically.
I think it's a fair point, actually, you make. The game against Standard Liège wasn't a breeze, wasn't a dead rubber, and went 95 minutes. At no point could Rangers ease up and go, right, lads, save the legs. It was full-blooded right to the end. So it was a tough match. Maybe a wee bit of a surprise yesterday that the team lined up with into maybe see more changes, but they didn't look as though they need refreshed, in all honesty. And County obviously buoyant after that result last week, obviously flying. And it might sound minor, but they had 300 fans in yesterday. And that was big, because it was their first, the first time that they'd had a crowd in. And I think that there was, if I may quote an Only an Excuse classic from the 90s, a buzz about the place, which is very, very understandable, as you can imagine. And just even, the supporters excited, wanting to thank their team for an amazing result last week. But straight from the off, in the first half an hour, you could see how well organised County are, and that it wasn't going to be easy. They had excellent shape. They were quick to get back into it whenever they didn't have the ball, and they were quick to close down any space that Rangers, things that we've not enjoyed the past couple of seasons when a team did that to us. But I was fortunate enough to be in the press area yesterday, watching that you could see, and I'm sure actually you could hear on the TV, the county management team were constantly saying things like swivel, eyes in the back of your head, watch, because it was Rangers' movement they were wary of, and eventually that just proved too much for County.
Yeah, and I've touched on this in previous pods that we went into this season pretty much certain that the biggest barrier to any kind of success this year would have been our ability to break down this famous low or infamous low blocks that we come across every other week, particularly at home. And I've mentioned that we are we are making teams that have got this kind of 5 at the back, 10 men behind the ball scenario. We're making it look as if they don't, because they are being apart literally by the movement and the fluidity of our team. Not only our team, our squad, because players are coming in and fitting in and know exactly what they're doing and what the kind of the machinations of the team are, and it's exceptionally good. And I think I touched upon it before, that it's as good as I've seen from a Rangers team, and that's including Advocaat's team, because his was a kind of rigid 4-4-2. There's never been anything like this, and teams just cannot. Today they cannot live with it for 90 minutes. So because yesterday we got to about, I don't know, 20, 25, 28 minutes, something like that, before we broke the deadlock. And Ross County, as you say, well drilled, strong, physical. They knew that their tails are up, obviously, from last week, so belief is very, very important. So that would have been there for them. And they were just starting to bed in, but not to the point where they were frustrating us, because I thought we were really patient. And although there was the chance for Payton when McGregor makes a save, I don't think we were getting frustrated as a team. I'd be interested to see if a crowd, if we'd been there, would have been getting frustrated after 30 minutes. But it was just this kind of total belief in the process now, that if we play as we can play, we know that we're going to get a breakthrough at some point or another. And I think there's also a very, very strong willingness and a very, very strong desire right through the team. You just need to look at Ruth's reaction when he scores a goal. It's not a case of smiles and high fives. It's actually this kind of steely determination, as in, fucking yes, we've done it, we've got through. Let's go in and do more. There's something about the team just now which is pretty relentless, to be quite honest with you. So I'm delighted with the way we're playing in terms of making mincemeat of this defensive planning that we're coming up against every week.
Yeah, and that first goal was just quality. I mean, Rangers have been scoring some amazing goals recently, but that one, everything about it, and something when I watched it back even earlier in the move, see, even before Stephen Davis gets the ball, look at Tav, he points. Before Davis gets the ball, he points to where he's going. And that kind of suggests that he can see how this move could open before he gets in his bike and shows Stephen Davis where he wants the ball. Stephen Davis produces a pass that is so incisive it should be taken over from Andrew Neil at the BBC to do political interviews. Tav gets there, cut back, because as soon as he starts, Kamar Ruth clocks him and goes, right, I need to get in there. Gets there and gets the finish. It's a move that has so many parts other than just the bits that, you know, that we see as fans. It's, again, coaching, training, players listening, and players being on the same wavelength.
It's a great goal if you watch the ball only. So an untrained eye, that's pretty condescending.
That's me. No, that's me. I'm not being funny. I'm not a trained coach. That's what I watch.
Neither am I, but I think the average Joe punter is becoming more and more aware of things that, if you jump back 20, 30 years, just wouldn't have been spoken about. But if you watch the ball, it's a great goal. If you watch the ball and the parts that have nothing to do with the ball, it's an even better goal, because if you break it down, and let's not get too bogged down in visualisations, but even Kent's move. So Kent, I think, gets the ball and taps it back today. He makes a dart and run, takes a man away with him. So there's your left winger, supposedly inverted commas, central. You've then got Morelos dropping, pulls a centre half away out the box as well. So he's moving. You've then got Roof, who, to be quite frank, is a number 10 for us at this moment in time, because Morelos, doesn't he? He's in there waiting for the end product. So you've got this kind of pulling of strings: Kent, Morelos, Roof, Tavernier, as you say, and then you've got the space created by Morelos and Kent for Davis to actually pass it through this. It is a sublime goal, and then you've got the desire and the timing and the kind of killer instinct that I've spoken about with Kamar Roof, just to put it in the net. I thought at the time, I was like, what a goal, not just the fact that it breaks the deadlock, and you know that breaking the deadlock up there is kind of is a huge, exactly, it's the point where you say, right, we can go in now and finish this off, whereas the longer it goes on, or if they get into half time at 0-0, you're thinking to yourself, or the ghosts of Christmas past are coming back to haunt us, and that wee bit of self-doubt comes into us as a support. I don't think it's coming into the team, but the goal itself was absolutely fantastic. I thought tremendous credit to the whole team, and as you say, it's a kind of absolute proof positive of whatever they've been doing on the training park from the start of the season to now. It is working to a T. The team are bought into it. The team understand it. The players are good enough to execute it. And I thought it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
On that, you mentioned Kamal Roof and the role he plays for the side. I think he's been absolutely crucial this season in helping us to break down stubborn teams, because he plays in places that he makes it uncomfortable for them. He goes in, he finds space. I mean, he's amazing at it, and he finds space and he pops up where they don't have somebody, and that forces their team to kind of move about. And the whole thing about a defensive structure like that is that you've got to keep it, everyone's got to be in relation to where everybody else is, and as soon as people start moving about, that's when the space comes. And you do need players like Davis, like Tav, like Barisic, like Kent, who can then work in that space. But he's so clever and so adept, I think, and he's also getting goals, and he's looking at this point, we mentioned this before, but it's true that you just see a guy arrive in Scotland sometimes. Not always. Sometimes guys arrive with reputations and don't live up to them. But sometimes you see a guy that arrives from maybe a kind of higher tier of football and you go, oh, aye, quality. And that's Roof.
Aye, Roof is integral. And the day we signed him, I was absolutely ecstatic because, again, I've said it before, I watched him at Leeds, and it was just an exciting, very exciting focal point for that team at the point in time. Leeds were pushing for the championship. I think it was 2-3 seasons ago. He was just a great wee player, dynamite. And when we signed him, I thought it's a real sign of intent, because he wouldn't have been cheap. And B, I like the fact that he's actually got something to prove, because he's never played at the top level in England. Could he? I don't think there's any doubt he could. When you look at some of the strikers that are playing down the road, at the lower end of the Premier League, I think he's good enough to do that plenty. So he is integral to the team, because, as you say, the movement, especially across the front three plus one other maybe, he has got intelligence to do that, and he must be a nightmare to play against. And I think you're spot on. Last year I would have said that if you're playing up against Rangers and you've got a back 4-5 who are disciplined, hold the line, talking to each other, they've got a very good chance of nullifying us, particularly in the second half of the season. I think that's obvious. I think this year, and we'll probably touch on Morelos as well, I'd imagine, because his role's changed as well. It's pretty hard to hold your line, hold your man, and keep in relation to the man next to you because of what we do. Because, as we know, Morelos has changed his game a wee bit. He drops deeper. Roof has then got space. So the two of them in tandem have moved things about. And if you're a centre-half, anybody who's played centre-half knows that the worst thing to happen when you're marking a striker is they drop deep, and you've then got to say, right, well, do I follow this guy, or do I leave him the space, or do I pass him like my midfielder? It just causes that wee bit of doubt and confusion for the defending team, but also it creates that wee bit of opportunity for the attacking team. And the big thing with Morelos is, last year, effectively, it was a straight locking of horns with a centre-half, and that's why you go to Selhurst Broad and so many kind of physical tussles. I mean, it was embodied by the Scott McKenna tussles. We basically play, Morelos is the focal point, he's the man that's going to create stuff in and around the box, and they would put a centre-half on him, and every game that would be more or less the same. Now you're not seeing that as much. I think the only physical altercations Morelos is getting caught into is when a defender comes up his arse, up his back.
Nobody likes somebody coming up their arse.
Rank pod, Davey.
No, that's just like the old days. That's what this pod was built on.
Listen, you're not getting any innuendo off me. You know that. I'm far too serious for that kind of stuff.
I don't know about that. After your baiting of me the other week about the Buffs getting beat by Larg Thistle, I'm not sure.
You brought that up, Davey.
Oh, are you? Aye. A few people were asking about that. All I'm saying, who was the name of the guy that scored the winning goal?
But Billy Boyne.
Was it?
No, it was somebody Haggerty.
Jack
Haggerty.
If you're going to bring in ringers into Ayrshire football, Andy, you can win that way if you want, but that's fine.
And he's on an EBT.
Some of us have got some of us remember when we were a once proud people, but no, okay. Anyway, let's move back.
So Morelos up the arse, we were talking about, right?
Yeah, we were talking about Morelos' arse,
aye, and what an arse it is, because he's no as there's no flashpoints from now because we've changed the way we're playing, and he's not the focal point, but he's still very important. So you're right. Your original point is very, very true. Teams cannot cope with our movement.
Now, there was an incident in inverted commas just before half time. I thought a pretty shocking tackle on Alfredo Morelos that I thought could have been a red card. Then there appeared to be a flare-up. Now, I've got to say that from where I was, I couldn't hear what was initially said. There was quite an angry reaction from several Rangers players and from Steven Gerrard. I think it's quite clear he says to the referee, "I heard it," or basically, why couldn't you hear it? After the match, he was asked about it, and he said he wouldn't be drawing on what was said. It was something for Ross County to deal with. He said it was something that shouldn't be heard on a football pitch, and Ross County said that they would investigate it, and if Michael Gardyne had said something inappropriate, it would be dealt with. Andy, your take on the whole fracas?
I think that I think we need to be careful that, and I thought Gerrard handled it really, really well, because I think in the heat of the game, sometimes you can, the kind of trial by social media can just blow things right out of proportion. Now, we don't actually know if Gardyne said something or not, or if it's been misheard or whatever. And as fans, I don't think we really can comment. What I would like to know is what the referee's report says. If there's any difference with what Gardyne has told Kettlewell, because obviously you've got corroboration issues here. Is it the same thing that he said to Kettlewell that Beaton's going to his report? What was bad enough for him that he heard that he felt he had to book him? So I think that's the nub of it, is that it's a wee bit he said, she said, and it's a very, very hard thing to prove. And we go back and look at lessons of Suarez and so forth, that it's very hard to get to the bottom of. But the big but is they have to get to the bottom of it, and somebody has to adjudicate it at some point, because you can't let it go. You can't let an accusation of whether it's homophobic or racial or something like that, which I've got to imagine it was. You can't let an accusation of that when you've got several Rangers players saying this is what he said. He says I didn't, and then you've got a referee in the middle that's either fudged it or called it out. So somewhere somebody's got to adjudicate on it, and if it's no a guilty verdict, so to speak, then they've got to justify why it's no, because they're either serious about these kind of things or they're not. And it's all right wearing badges with show racism, red card, and taking a knee, and rainbow laces and all this kind of stuff. That's the acid test of all these campaigns, because if they don't do something about it, or at least show a process to deal with it, then it's for nothing.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't racist. As I say, I don't want to kind of say, "Oh, I heard this or I heard that," because I didn't hear it. So anything that I've heard has been hearsay, and the clubs were both playing it quite close to their chest. But what they did sort of intimate is that it wasn't anything racial. So, just because I know that, as you say, sometimes things can gather steam, and
yes,
we can make something into a bigger problem than it is. But we'll wait and see what happened with it. Certainly, there was no fights at full time about it or anything like that. And I think that Rangers were happy with Ross County's response. Anyway, into the second half, and then the James Tavernier show continued. Andy, player of the month, Captain Fantastic. What a season he's having. Goal number, just the 16th for him. Another one from open play. He then had said through the week, I want to get more assists. He only had the 10, but he then added one in the first half and one in the second for the own goal. Just another superb display. He's just getting better and better.
Aye, he's beyond integral for us at this moment in time. I'm trying to think, and this is probably a wee kind of shock jock technique, but I'm trying to think of a player that's been more integral as an individual for us for a long, long time, where if you took him out of the team, it would entirely change the way we play. Because no harm to Nathan Patterson or anybody else who play back, I don't think it's possible for you to replicate. Put it this way, if you're a guy in the background that could replicate what Tavernier's doing, he wouldn't be in the background, he'd be at a first team somewhere.
Yep.
So he's a fulcrum of what we do, which is incredible for a right back. I think the captain kind of issue where Gerrard's first action was to make James Tavernier captain, and there was not about me, I've got to say, but there was eyebrows raised. I think that is now utterly vindicated, because I think we as a support, and I'm not just talking about Rangers supporters, I think football in general, still visualise a captain in inverted commas as somebody that clenches a fist and rallies the troops and punches down doors and does all this kind of stuff. And the game's moved on. It's very much about, and Gerrard's been open about it just last night, I think it was, an article on the Rangers website about culture building, how he sets the tone, how he influences people. And that's really, really important, because if you think back to some of the travails we've had over the last 4 or 5 seasons, and how, let's take for example how a Joey Barton influenced the dressing room, and you know, the negativity of one can just poison the well. And I think Tavernier sets the tone for every single player in that squad in terms of professionalism, how he looks after himself, attitude to games. I mean, his attitude is the same from first minute to 90th minute. I just think he's been utterly exceptional, and I'm delighted because we've come through periods with Tavernier where folk have gave him stick, and I've always, as you'll know, Davey, I've always stuck up for him, because I thought, first of all, it was very over the top. I thought it was flack for him, but not flack for others who deserved it more. And I always, even through the darkest times when we were no competing with Celtic or Aberdeen for that matter, I always seen him as the one guy that if he was in a good team, he would excel, and it's been proven to be correct. And you know, I don't know what other teams or other fans down south, when they see a guy like that, there's no way that he can translate that to a higher level again. A higher level again. And I'm not saying that I play for England or this kind of stuff. I think that's stupid to hear that kind of stuff. But I think when I watch English football and you see players that are on tens upon tens of thousands of pounds a week and high profile reputations, and you're like, I wouldn't swap him for Tavernier in a million years. I mean, I watched Spurs yesterday and they've got the boy Aurier, who I've watched a couple of times. There's no way I'd swap that £20 million right back for James Tavernier.
No, God, no.
And that's a major thing that we need to realise, is we've got a right back and a captain just now that's worthy of it. Absolutely.
Now, Jermaine Defoe, 800 career appearances, so congratulations to him. Celebrated it in the most Jermaine Defoe way possible. But I was pleased for big Cedric Itten, who's occasionally taken a wee bit of criticism. I think that the manager spoke very highly of him after the game, saying, you know, he will get more opportunities, he's going to be a big player for us. I loved that attitude in a game that was all but done, but there he was charging away, trying to make an impression and creating a goal.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because Cedric Itten is, and I recognise myself that I'm always giving Rangers players the benefit of the doubt. I very, very rarely write a Rangers player off until...
You're Panglossian.
Would they? What? Panglossian?
Word of the day for you, mate.
Is that homophobic?
No, not at all, no.
But I'll look that up after.
You're allowed to be Panglossian, it's not...
That's good.
You know, you won't get in trouble for it.
I'll take it as a compliment.
It wasn't a sneaky way of insulting you.
Cedric Itten is... I think he has, from what we've seen of him, all the attributes to be an excellent Rangers centre forward. And I think the situation we've got just now, where we are able to slowly but surely bleed him in with a certain level of responsibility and a certain opportunity or window of opportunity to show what he can do, is ideal, because it allows him to find his feet. Whereas even last year, any player we'd signed, certainly a striker we'd signed for £2.5 million, we'd have been expecting, or we'd have been needing, instant results for the guy. And if it didn't come off, or if it didn't happen early doors, then in true Rangers Old Firm fashion, his history would have been written before he had the chance to do it himself. So I like him, Davey, I really do, because what he's got is he's mobile. I think his attitude is spot on. The fact he's been playing as a wide right striker, which clearly isn't his game, but he's been effective in doing that, which means he's a team player. I think he's going to be a player that will be able to play with his back to goal and in the box. He can hold stuff up. He can take people on if required. He looks as if he can shoot. He's been missing chances, but he's been getting the chances, and that's saying something when you come on with a 10, 15-minute cameo to even get a chance. So I've got really high hopes for Cedric Ian, I've got to be honest, and I'd like to think that the day Morelos goes, we are not sitting there saying, well, we need to sign a replacement for Morelos. I think he is a replacement for Morelos, if I'm quite honest. And for £2.5 million, I don't think that's a lot of money in this market. He looks to me, Davey, and you might know this if you watch the Bundesliga, he looks like the type of player that would sign for a Bundesliga team, a mid-table Bundesliga team, and excel and get himself noticed. That's what he looks like to me. I think he's got a big future ahead of himself internationally as well, but obviously the Rangers success has to come first. So, yeah, Cedric Eaton, he done really well at that goal. I think I spoke of his attitude, the strength and the desire to show something in that closing 15 minutes that he got on was epitomised by that. So, yeah, delighted for him.
I think it's a sign of being in a healthy place that you can sign someone like him, and because I'm a football fan, I go, well, he's not really featuring much. But I think the argument back is we didn't buy him to feature much right now, and it's a good thing that he's not featuring much because the guys in the team are doing so well. Haji's the same, incidentally. I saw a Romanian journalist saying, his situation's concerning. It's not really. Rangers love him. It's just that right now the team's playing so well. But you sign these guys to develop, and then, as you say, we moved to being a bit of a player trading organisation financially. Yep. That you've got the guy. It's much better to have the ready-made replacement sitting already there, and you go, right, okay, he's next in line. Dare I say it, and I know this is heretical, but Celtic did this with Edward. They had Dembele. They spent what looked an outrageous amount of money for the guy that was Dembele's backup, but Dembele was sold and Edward just took over the reins. And that's what I want us to do. I'd love that. That's ideal. I mean, great if you get the money in and you go and buy other players, but if you've already got the replacement for that position, then you don't need to spend all the money you get on bringing in a replacement. So, no, all positive for us up in the Highlands then. And then, young Davey here, as you know, Andy, public transport boy, head back to Inverness, get myself on the train. Long journey ahead, but I settled down. Stuck on the iPad, was quite happy watching Tottenham Hotspur versus Arsenal. My team's 1-4-0, we're top of the league, all good. And then the texts start coming in. Then I had the longest 10 minutes of the journey, and then it just flew by after that. I am talking, of course, about the last 10 minutes at Parkhead. I didn't think for a second that Celtic would drop points in this fixture, genuinely. And it is that thing of maybe not looking at it, analytically, because I'm a Rangers fan. And to me, I suppose the overriding, feeling isn't based on logic. It's based on they'll win just to annoy me. Which I accept isn't the most scientific approach, incidentally. But, I'm sure we've all felt that. And it's dragging on. Now we're kind of conditioned to Celtic teams getting a late winner. Then St Johnstone's scoring and you go, oh, wow, there's something on there. But then Celtic almost immediately equalised. And I think we all went, all right, okay, here we go. And we're beginning to sort of, I was talking to you, and we're beginning to console ourselves going, they'll win, but they can't take anything out of this. It's another close one. It just papers over the cracks. And they didn't win. Now, this is not a blip now. This is how they're playing, and it's not bad luck. I mean, it's game after game after game. We've won at Parkhead more times since September than they have. That, I think, is a rather damning statistic. Now, I am a great believer in that whatever causes their misfortune is great. But in this instance, I do think that Rangers deserve a fair bit of credit for it, because I think it's us and our relentlessness and the fact that I think it's dawning on them that we can't just think they're going to slip up because it doesn't look like they are. And then something I've banged on about for years on here. Celtic have been able, the last few years, to relax and play football. And when you relax and you're playing football and you're confident, it's amazing how your results tend to be better. Because they could go a goal down in a game and go, right, we'll come back, don't worry about it. And because they knew they had the gap and they knew that we'd likely F it up. All of that plays into the psychology of it. Whereas us, about this time in the season, we're usually hitting, we can't afford to drop points. So if we go a goal down, panic. Not just the fans, players took patch shit. Right, we need to get this back. It's a 180. This is reversed. They're going through that right now, and they haven't experienced this in years. Whereas our boys are now able to go, just go out and play football, lads. We're better than them, and there's a good chance. Let's put the pressure on them. Good chance they'll slip up. That is a virtuous cycle. That's exactly what you want. We've suffered from it the last few years. The other side, the vicious side of that cycle. But now things are moving, and I just assumed that they'd come out of it. I'm sure they did as well, and they will eventually, right? History tells us that, but I don't think it is as simple as just they will come out of this.
Well, first of all, it was a Panglossy, and I was quite confident that St Johnstone would take something for the game, to be honest with you. So,
well done.
Thank you.
I don't know what you're complaining about here. You came on the show, you got educated a bit, you learned something.
I just googled it. It's not. I'm quite happy and I'm relaxed.
You thought I was calling you something. I've got a belter coming up, so get your pen ready.
It's no countdown, Davey.
Listen, Andy, look, the one thing in my life I've ever achieved is I got a degree in English, and occasionally I want to use these fucking words, okay? If I had to learn how to spell them, then I'm going to occasionally slip them in from time to time.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, see, this is brilliant. We've got Andy learning new words. He's gone for double entendres. This is superb.
Scott Vandenacker's kind of spirit just tearing me up.
Spirit lives on. All we need now is just to... I would really feel that I'd achieved something in life. That see if we could get through 4 or 5 hours tonight without you posting a picture of your kid. You've grown as a human in that case.
You're on to plums. Sorry about that, but no.
I wouldn't even mind, but the pictures are sent to you because you refuse to watch her.
No, well, yeah, no. What's the point of having a wife and a mother? Anyway, there's.
She listens to this, by the way. You know she listens to this.
Listen, she listens to Heart and Hand more than me. She tells me what's going on. I'm in the group chat. Anyway, so the Celtic game, I was the same as you. I'm like, well, they've got to turn that around some time. You flip a coin so many times, you're going to get it your way some point. And sort of strange things happened. Through the years, I've not watched Celtic when they've been live because it's been a wee bit of a form of torture, as you say, because they've been good, particularly in the Rodgers. You'll watch them, you're like, relentless, functioning, good players, loads of goals. It depresses you to watch them, so I've deliberately not watched Celtic. See the last 5 weeks? I'm minute they've played. And it's this thing you've said there, exactly right, David. The pressure on them is crushing them because we spoke earlier on about we got to half an hour before we scored at Ross County. That is what's happening to them. The doubt is creeping into their minds minute by minute by minute. And they have the same problem that we were talking that we had last year, whereas a team can set up fairly simplistically in terms of defensive structure, and they've got a chance because they are misfiring so badly as a team in terms of goal scoring, creation, threat, even set pieces or shit. They're fairly bits. I'm actually, and I mean this sincerely, I'm shocked at how bad they are because there's nothing in there that you're saying, well, if you bring in a new manager, they'll get a reaction. Yeah, you might get a reaction psychologically and mentally for a wee bit, but there's fundamental flaws in that squad that are not going to get fixed. I mean, they're screaming for Turnbull, they're screaming for a guy we've never seen, Sorrow, whatever his name is. I don't even know his name. And then
neither do they. I don't think Lennon's met him.
And then they've got Duffy and all the rest. A goalkeeper who looks as if he's a geriatric falling off a wheelchair when he goes for the ball, you know what I mean? Mm. So there's major problems, and it's far deeper than just their first 11 and coaching, because we spoke about Itten, and if you to say to me what's Ross Wilson's kind of role in a word, it's succession, isn't it? Whether it's for the management team, whether it's for a striker, whether it's for whatever. They've brought in this guy who, I can't remember his name, but I seen his picture for the first time the other day, and he's responsible, as far as I know, for the recruitment policy. And
Nicky Hammond, I think his name is.
Is it?
Yeah, he's a spitting image of Dr. Michael Kelly. And given the way that Celtic are playing now, I think he might actually be Dr. Michael Kelly with Grecian 2000.
Celtic's miles better.
Remember that. Canvas Lang is real.
Aye, the Canvas Land Dome. Jesus, we're going back here. But so I don't think that they're going to just turn a corner one day and go on a run. And I think you said the 180 is true, because this time last year, well, maybe not last year, but certainly after Christmas, we were deluded. We were sitting there saying, it's 5 points, it's 7 points, it's 9 points, and you're still playing on twice, and you've got a game in hand, and you kind of do this mental gymnastics where you try to keep yourself alive in the game, when in reality you would have to sit down and say, right, well, we need to win every single game and they need to lose 2-3 games. The first part's just not going to happen, so forget it. That's where they're at the now. And they're exacerbating it with this strange Lennon thing, where either they're doing it out of spite against the Green Brigade because they don't want to be seen to collapse to fan pressure, or fan riots, I should say, or they can't afford it. I think that's the elephant in the room. I think they're sitting there saying, right, if we get rid of Lennon, we've got to pay him off, probably need to pay off a couple of his backroom. You've then got to go and recruit somebody. He's got to come for the market where he's no tied up with a club at this moment in time. You then risk burning him, because if he doesn't win 10 in a row, he's forever going to be the manager that never won 10 in a row, whether it's his fault or no. And that might be what they're thinking about with the likes of, what's his face, Eddie Howe and stuff. They might be saying, well, we'll just wait until next year and try and get a bounce for it there. They've got problems. They've got major problems. And the reaction of Celtic fans is, it's like, it's beyond my wildest dreams. It's like, I always imagined that worlds would collapse if they never go to 10, but always envisioned it going to the wire and then we win it in the last game or last 2 games, and then it's like a thunderclap of shock. Whereas what we've got now, it's not a slow motion car crash, it's a slow motion train wreck. It's worse than a car crash, because what they're doing is they're eating themselves alive, and they've no power whatsoever, because they can't go on the ground, they can't vent their anger, they're reduced to phone and Clyde, they're reduced to tying strips to a construction fence like today.
I can exclusively reveal that as we've been recording, pictures have emerged on social media that the strips have been removed.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that's just shocking. I mean, it's a totalitarian society they live in.
Well, it's a cover-up from the Celtic board, which I'm sure everybody would be shocked about.
But I sense now that, the Rangers support have been very tempered and measured, and I think they learned a lesson for last New Year, in that nothing's done until it's done. And it's true. If take away the games in hand, which I always do, and you're 7 points, and you must factor in the nightmare scenario of a COVID bomb, which, you look at Newcastle United, they've closed their training centre. It's unrealistic to expect your team to function properly if that kind of thing was to happen. And it really could. So I hope Rangers are scouring the world for this vaccine, and have put a big fat check in with somebody to get the vaccine.
Absolutely. So no, I totally agree with that.
We need to take heart, and we need to just keep the pressure on, because the other thing you say is right, Davey, is it's because of us. Because if we weren't winning, or if it was still 2-3 points, I don't think the pressure would be as intense. But they're looking at us, and they'll be doing what I was doing, which is turning the telly off or no watching it, because it puts the shits right up. You're watching a team that's so good, not just in Scotland but abroad. So you're right. They're total 180. The belief is gone in the team, never mind the support, and there's no quick fix. There really isn't, because I think they've got fundamental issues with the recruitment they've had and the players they've now got at their disposal. You might get a wee bit of better tune out of them off somebody, but I don't think they're going to be a consistent force for the rest of the season, hopefully.
Hopefully, yep. Celtic are in the midst of what can only be described, Andy, as a Brobdingnagian crisis.
You just made that up.
No, I didn't. That's a real word. So,
really?
Yes, indeed, really. All the learned listeners are sitting at home nodding, as they're sitting there with a... means really fucking big.
That's what we've got to say. Does it mean they're fucked?
Hopefully. Anyway, let's move on. A couple of things I wanted to get your input on specifically, Andy, as of course the ideal man when it comes to anything to do with the finances at the club to chat to, but also on a slightly smaller, well, much smaller thing really in terms of the future of the club, but still something I wanted to talk to you about. Andy runs an RSC and has ran a bus for many years. At the weekend, Rangers women's team were playing, and the game was being streamed live to encourage fans to purchase it, to pay for the match, to watch the women's team. Rangers offered 1 MyGers point for everyone who bought that, and that I noticed got quite a lot of debate going on social media, with some fans being really annoyed. They felt that they're being forced to take an interest in the women's team that they don't have to get a MyGers point, which obviously down the line will be useful in terms of getting tickets. And it brought back to the table a lot of criticism of the MyGers scheme, which we haven't really seen in operation, to be honest, this year because of COVID. But, with regards to the future, the other side of the coin, people saying, look, Rangers want the women's team to succeed. It's also a source of revenue for the club, and it's pretty straightforward that most businesses will offer incentives to get you to try new products. That's something that happens all the time, really. In any business, they'll say, we're bringing this out, you can get it for a reduced rate, early doors, or, if you buy that, you'll also get half price on this. Yeah, it's an offer, I suppose. Andy, I don't think it was so much about the women's team as maybe MyGers in general, which continues, as far as I know. Actually, at the weekend, I heard from somebody at Rangers that they sent an email out on Friday and got 200 sign-ups to MyGers, just on the back of one email, and they're getting close to 30,000 members of MyGers, so they're quite happy with it because, it's money directly into the club. What are your thoughts overall on first of all, what caused this smash, and then the bigger situation?
I'm going to upset folk here because I've got a fairly strange view for a guy that runs a Rangers supporters club, and I'll qualify why I've got a strange view. It's because, yes, I'm a football fan, but there's everything's subjective, really, and I'm lucky in the position that I don't really have financial constraints when it comes to Rangers. I can indulge my passion without too much sacrifice. Still sacrifice other things, right? But I don't really think about anything else other than Rangers. That's my main thing in my life. The other thing is that I think I'm quite good at thinking not like a football fan, but thinking like somebody that might be sitting in the Rangers board. And I think it's born out of the fact that I'm quite tuned into what a football club needs, and I think I see a direct correlation between how much money goes into Rangers and what comes out in the park. I don't think that's actually deniable. But there's obviously a happy medium that has to be struck with all these kind of things, because a football club is not a normal business. It's a passion. It's a labour of love, and you can't just kind of price somebody out in the market. So this is why MyGers has become a wee bit of a bone contention, because not everybody's purposes or not everybody's kind of desires are served by it. Rangers supporters clubs will be probably hurt by it, but the individual that travels to games himself or with his pals or with his family probably will be served with it. So in saying that, I thought that the 1 point for the women's game, I think you're right, David, COVID has meant that MyGers have been pretty pointless this year, because it hasn't been used for the away games because there's not been any games, right? But what MyGers is, at its absolute fundamental purpose, is it is a function to direct the pound in your pocket to where Rangers want it to go, right? That is what it's for. And I actually looked into this the past couple of weeks, because I think Chelsea and Arsenal, they've got really strong schemes, very, very, very similar to MyGers, which they use for similar purposes. And this is just the start of it, I've got to say. I think that the direction of 1 point for you buying a women's game, I'll be honest, I've watched the women's games before. I generally won't watch them if I've got another option, which is obviously Sky or something, a game on Sky. I'm not going to watch Rangers game. Would I pay £3.49 and get £1 point on my MyGers? Yes, I did. A, because £3.49 is neither here nor there to me, and B,
check you.
I know, Mr. Moneybags, eh?
Yeah, definite stealth going on here, eh?
No, not stealth. I mean, the £3.49 would get me a quarter of a week shopping in Aldi, so it's all relative, Davey. No, it's not just about the pounds and shillings.
I'd like
it's
to point out that it could get you 2 Heart and Hand subscriptions
for Christmas for your loved one,
and that would be for a whole month. So just saying.
Corporate shill. But the fact is that I would have sat there and said, right, I can not buy this out of principle, but generally I accept the MyGers principle, so I'm doing it. I've got to be part of it. Now, let me just throw in this grenade here, but see when fans start back into Ibrox and it's limited numbers, do you think they'll use MyGers to dictate who goes? Obviously postcodes and things like that and tiers will come into play, but
I don't. I think, and they shouldn't. It should be a season ticket ballot.
Right. Okay. So,
I don't think, if unless the government are making postcodes a thing, I don't think that should be a factor either. To be honest, I think it should just be a straight ballot. I think that if you get in, then that's you ruled out the next few ballots.
I agree.
It's difficult for me because I struggle to talk about this at the moment because obviously I've been getting in, right? And the last thing anybody needs is some, lucky arsehole like me giving his tuppence worth on this. I understand my views are very easy to shout down because of that. So that's one of the reasons why on Heartman we try and get as many different podders and as many different views as possible, because I do understand that people are sitting there going, it's all right for you. So I will accept anyone saying my view isn't valid because they have a point, I think.
Well, everybody's got a view, but as I say, it's subjective because if you've got the one thing I will say about MyGers, which I don't think is good, is that if you've got a family, so say you've got a dad, 2 kids, right, or mum and dad and 1 kid, whatever, and they've got season tickets and they go to away games and they try to follow Rangers, because I go to away games, I see the same faces every week. These guys have got utter commitment and the wallet and everything else. And the fact is, if they can't go with their wife or whatever, then it's a change of the norm, if you like. What they have to do is they have to buy 2 games yesterday. They need to buy one for the wife, one for the husband, and possibly one for the kid. And they all need to have Rangers TV subscriptions, because I'm the same just now. I go generally with my wife, Sarah, and she's not got a Rangers TV subscription because, shock horror, I put it in my name, right? So unless she pays £60 for a year's annual subscription, she doesn't get the points that I've got. So immediately there's a discrepancy between my points and her points. And it's going to invariably have an impact in terms of ticket distribution. At some point I'll get a ticket where she doesn't qualify, or she'll be in a different tier. So you're basically, and this was a point that was made to me that I hadn't actually thought about, and it was made by somebody that's not entirely convinced by MyGers, which is an understatement. You've basically tripled, or whatever number of people you have in your wee bubble of supporting Rangers, the number of purchases they need to make.
That's fair. I think that's a very fair point. Whoever made that, it's a fair point.
Basically, it is a flaw in the system, and it will have repercussions. But cynically, it does increase the revenue streams for Rangers. But again, we go back to this kind of tempered, measured balance you want to strike, where you're not ripping the piss out of your fans and they're getting what they want at the same time, which is a team on the park. So it's a fine line, and I think MyGers will be fine-tuned. I don't think it's a finished article. I think next year, or whenever we get back to away games, that is when the kind of true acid test will happen. And I think year to year, maybe no mid-season, because you can't really change rules mid-season, but I think year to year you'll see wee tweaks here or there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, I because of my age, perhaps, because, I went on buses and supporters clubs, that I do understand when people get a little bit, what's going to happen to it's such an important part of us and who we are as a support, that I'd be gutted if anything bad happened to them because of this. So I can understand why people are a little bit frustrated with it, and as you say, it's legitimate, and hopefully it will get. So there's bits I don't like about it. I don't think you should need to sign up to MyGers to be in the season ticket list. I think that's wrong. I think you should be able to get on the list for a season ticket regardless. You shouldn't have to pay for the privilege of that. I don't think that's fair in the slightest. And it's something that I've been moaning quite consistently about. But you're right. Hopefully, we will see tweaks of it going forward that makes it a fairer and more equitable system for everybody. And then on, Andy, to the big news of last week, and that was Dave King announced that he is going to sell his shares to Club 1872. Club 1872 will have 3 years, although he's hinted that it could be longer, to come up with the funds. But right now, the shareholding would be around about £13 million to purchase. Club 1872 have said that to do this, they require 20,000 new legacy members of Club 1872. Got off to a strong start with 1,000 signing up already, which is good news. The scheme, I think, was met with mostly good vibes, but there has been a little bit of people not too happy with it. Their main point seems to be that the money isn't going into Rangers; that the money would be going into a private investor, albeit Dave King, a private investor I think we're all very well disposed to. Andy, what are your thoughts on the whole thing? And as I say, you're somebody who does take a keen interest in the financial affairs of the club, so I'd be keen to hear what your take on it has been.
Okay, here we go. So I've always been a big advocate of Club 1872. Not so much Club 1872, but I'm a big advocate of a fan group or multiple fans group getting a share block of 25% or more, because we need to, and I'm taking a mega long-term view here, I'm talking like 100 years down the line, we need to make sure that what happened with Craig White and everything else that followed cannot be happening again. And as MD, it's been at a live show and heard one of my rants, I've had a fairly blind faith in Club 1872 and paying my money every month, just a modest amount, but paying it every month, writing it off and kind of going towards a kind of ideological endgame, it trumps anything else. It trumps whether you like Club 1872's personnel, whether you like their statements, whether you like the cut their jib. Anything else really for me was peripheral, and I would be quite vociferous to people who would oppose me or say I'm stopping my subscription because I don't like that statement or I don't like this guy or that woman. I've always been one that you're missing the bigger picture. However, there's positives and negatives to this thing with the King deal because, first of all, it's very subjective. As I say, I want to get the 25% block, but timing's a wee bit strange because I think the price that would come with. So let's say we get 30 million Club 1872 get that block. Then one big massive step towards true, in capital letters, self-reliance, and that means that your benefactor model where you've got Douglas Park or Bennett or whoever it is kind of offsetting any losses, that you kind of have to consign that to the bin and say, right, well, you've got a fan group that really is the biggest voice in terms of final decision makings, and a benefactor who has made his millions and is any business savvy generally isn't going to put money in without having a say in at least how things are run and pretty much the final say. So you're kind of giving that up. I'm certainly sitting here saying if it was me with the multi-millions, I wouldn't be doing that if I knew that I could be topped in a vote by a fan group, right? So you really have to face up to the harsh reality, fiscal discipline, what that means for the football club, what it means about losses, because losses then become a real problem. And are you willing to pay that price in the short term for the long-term game? I think King, now I loved, Davey, how many times have I backed Dave King and kind of sung his praises?
You love Dave King. You wanted to call Olivia Dave.
Kingy, I call her. But the fact is that we are forever in his debt, probably more than anybody, because although he's put in financials, what I've liked about Dave King is he's corralled the investors, and I've said time and time again, it's very unusual to get people of that calibre and that kind of entrepreneurial spirit singing off the same hymn sheet. So he's managed to do that and get through all the travails of the Ashley stuff and everything else. I thought what he's done and where we're at just now has been nothing short of a corporate and football miracle when you add in all the variables that could go wrong there. But I found the timing strange. I felt and this is a feeling as opposed to an opinion, I felt a wee bit blindsided by it, because unless somebody can correct me, I never anticipated Dave King wanting the money back, right? Because effectively that's what's happening here. I distinctly remember him talking about this in terms of him spending his family's inheritance, and I obviously knew that his family would be sitting there saying, well, there's a limit to this. But I don't, I mean, could he proxy the shares to Club 1872? Could there be another way of doing it without buying it? I don't know. I think it's a massive undertaking. I think the concept itself means that Club 1872 has to be looked at in terms of its structure, its actual being, because I don't think it's fit for this kind of undertaking. I really do. And the reason for that isn't something where I'm going to slag somebody, because if you're a volunteer, and David, you've done it in a trust, you've done it more than me, it's a thankless task, and you're always going to get folks sniping for the sidelines. But I think if you're going to make this real and true and proper, and you're going to have a company, a fan group company that's got 25% block and all the huge responsibility that goes with that, I think you need to have a structure before the money's there, to allow people the comfort that if you give us whatever it is, £500, £100, whatever it is, it's a lot of money to people. There is a structure in place where you can have the confidence. There's checks and balances. There's corporate responsibility. It's not one or two people that control that massive shareholding. I've got to be honest, I don't see that at this moment in time. I think Club 1872, this is the point in time where it should be taking that kind of leap from what it is just now, which is great, fantastic, to something which is truly exceptional and befitting of a 25% or more shareholding. Now, how you do that, I don't know. And people have kindly said to me, "Well, Andy, you're the kind of guy." I'll be well out my depth doing that. That's nothing to do with it. But I'm talking about proper corporate directors, whether they're non-exec or past history. Those kind of people need to be in there on a board, as opposed to maybe one or two concentrated power holders. I think that's fairly fundamental to give people confidence. The proof of the pudding will be in how many people take it up. And I'm not taking it up. Now, I'm a contributor to Club 1872, but I'm not going to increase or change it to the legacy contribution, because my gut tells me it's not the right thing to do, based on what I've just said, but based on the fact I would far prefer my money, or any small contribution, to be new money to the club, as opposed to money to buy shares that doesn't go in the club. Does that make sense? I think if you're doing the line 3-4 years and we've maybe won things, and you've got a 2 or 3 years of better accounts without losses, and you're closer to that model that we've spoken about, I think that's where you could say, right, I don't feel the need to kind of keep my money in my hip for the benefit of the club. I am now able to hand it over, knowing that it'll no go to the club, and it'll help for that 25% kind of concept. So there's a lot at play there, Davey, and I'm conflicted. I'm very conflicted about it. And the proof will be in the pudding. The only thing I can think that Dave King said is, I need to get the clock ticking on this. I need to give them 3 years to get the money, and he's probably thought, well, better sooner rather than later, and things are looking good at the moment. Optimism's high. Why not try it now? I just found it strange, and I would be very, very interested to know what the current board and investors think. I think their silence speaks volumes.
Okay, well, yeah, a lot to chew on there. I'm quite honest. I mean, if I sound a bit, I'm a bit surprised at you saying that you wouldn't. I would have had you down as an automatic signer-upper.
Well, you know, I've really wrestled with this, because what's effectively happening is I've contradicted myself, because I've been sitting saying here for years and years, 25% plus one, 25% plus one. It's a be all and end all. We must protect the club. And here I'm being presented with the opportunity to do my bit for it, and I'm like, nah, right? Which is totally contradictory and hypocritical. But I'm saying here, I'll do it, but I think you need to have a wee. It should be in conjunction with other things. It should be in conjunction with a full-scale kind of propelling of Club 1872 to what it should be. I think you need to look at what the communication has been at this point, right? I can't really remember anything for Club 1872 of note, and then the next thing we're getting an email to say, here, here's an opportunity to give us money for this. There was no signposting of it. There was no. I mean, marketing in this day and age isn't hard when you've got a captive audience like the Rangers support and you've got Twitter or Facebook. I think that's a kind of bare minimum. All that kind of stuff has been missed. And whether they've been blindsided by King coming at short notice, I don't know. But they've never really seemed to kick on and become what they should be, because I truly believe that Club 1872 should be what the Rangers pools were for the previous generations. Because Rangers pools for the youngsters basically built our club to
built a stadium,
built a stadium and left us debt free. And you can imagine at some point I could have seen Club 1872 being in the next vehicle to give us the next Ibrox Stadium. That's how long term I looked at this. Or you could have a club where Club 1872 where you've got £40,000 or £50 a month a year, you know, and there you've got a big non-investor or non-individual nest egg to meet any losses we meet any other year. And then you can run the club in the red, or if we have a bad year in Europe when we've got a loss, you can turn to the fans and then we increase our shareholding. That's where I would have envisaged at Club 1872 being. I don't know if they've missed the boat with that window of opportunity, because you'd like to have thought that through the years of turmoil when it felt so rawest, is that a word?
It is now.
It is now. It felt so raw that's when the opportunity would have been to get folk to act with their heart, to put their hand in their pocket. So, you know, I'm interested to see where they go over here. It just feels a bit flimsy, and I don't think the timing is right, because I think, we know we're going to have losses. We're still going to need investors to help us. The investors are the things that make me sleep at night, because if they turn around and say, oh, actually, that's it, and it's because 25% there, I'm not getting the confidence putting money in. We're in a different world financially. So I've always been honest with the listeners that I wouldn't just blindly nod my head and say, right, this everything's hunky dory. When I see something, I'll say, right, well, I've got a concern here, I've got a concern there. Our biggest problem is if we can't cover the losses, we're back to square one. Investors cover the losses. This is a possible barrier to those investors covering the losses. So that's probably why my gut's telling me, hold on a minute.
Oh, interesting as always. Give me stuff to chew on there. So we're hoping to have an interview with representatives from Club 1872. We'd hoped to have it for today, but they're amenable to it. They've told us that they're up for it. So hopefully next week we interview with Club 1872. In the meantime, there's an interview with Laura from Club 1872 and Dave King going to be posted on the Four Lads Had a Dream website tomorrow. Stevie and Chris Jack of the Glasgow Times conducted that interview, so you'll be able to hear a lot more on there as well. So my thanks to our executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Miles, and my thanks for a fantastic hour, Andy. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Mr. Andy McGowan.
Thanks for having me on, Davey. Cheers, listeners.
Absolute pleasure as always. You can hear more from me and from Andy if you go to our Patreon site, patreon.com/heart and hand. But we'll be back next Monday here on the show. Cammy, of course, will be with you on Friday with a report from the Lech Poznan game and a look ahead to Sunday's match versus Dundee United. Until then, continue to enjoy the week. It's been a long time, but right now it's as good being a bear as it's been for a long, long time. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.